Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Warrant Officer Adam Henry. We warmly welcome the family of Private Ernest Arthur Butler, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the ceremony broadcast around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Good afternoon. Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Ernest Arthur Butler. Ernest Butler was born on the 8th of August 1915 to Harry and Elsie Butler in Rozelle in Sydney's inner west. Popularly known as Ernie, Butler lived in Ryde and attended the local school before he began working as a milk carter. He was living in the family home at 269 Blaxland Road in Ryde when war broke out. In 1941, he was called up for the militia, serving in an infantry battalion for 3 months before enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force in June. The 25-year-old was assigned to the artillery, becoming a gunner with the 2nd 13th Field Regiment, which had earlier been the 2nd 1st Medium Regiment. In September, Butler embarked for overseas service. His regiment was sent to the Middle East with a view to take part in the Syria-Lebanon campaign, but arrived too late to participate in those operations. The unit's title was then reverted to the 2nd 1st Medium Regiment, and in October it was equipped with 155mm howitzers. Following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor and the opening of the Pacific War, much of the AIF returned from the Middle East to prepare to meet the new threat. Gunner Butler returned to Australia in March 1942. Around late 1942, Butler volunteered for specialist training to join the independent companies. Originally trained to conduct raids and reconnaissance in enemy territory during 1942, the Australian independent companies fought a guerrilla war against the Japanese occupation of Timor and harassed and observed Japanese positions in New Guinea. In March 1943, Butler transferred to the 1st Australian Commando Training Battalion in Canungra, southeast Queensland. And in July, Butler was posted as a reinforcement to the 2nd 6th Independent Company prior to the company's deployment to Papua. During the year, Butler married Alma Mary Watton, and the new bride moved into the family home in Blaxland Road. Their time together, however, was fleeting. In September, the Allies launched a major offensive against the Japanese in New Guinea. As part of this great offensive, in mid-September, the 2nd 6th Independent Company was flown to from Papua to New Guinea to support the Australian 7th Division's coming campaign in the Markham Valley. On the 19th of September, with little prior reconnaissance or patrolling, the 2nd 6th Independent Company made a daring attack on a cluster of villages that made up Kai Pit. The company swept through the first village in 10 minutes, clearing pits and huts to overwhelm the Japanese defenders. The company's commander reported that they went in hard and the enemy panicked. Having secured the first village, the 2nd 6th dug in and that night repelled several Japanese thrusts. The next morning, the Australians captured the remaining villages in an airfield. The seizure of Kai Pit opened up the Markham Valley for the Australian advance to the lower reaches of the Ramu Valley. It was one of the most significant actions conducted by independent companies during the war. It was an impressive victory, and over 200 Japanese bodies were counted. 14 Australians, however, were killed or died of wounds from the action, including Ernest Butler, who was killed on the 20th of September. He was 28 years old. He is buried in Lay War Cemetery, New Guinea. His family chose these simple words for his headstone: "And I gave unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish." His name is listed on the roll of honour to my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Ernest Arthur Butler, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. at the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.